Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Before we start, have you ever wondered why Chile can or can't make certain decisions? Why do some international treaties generate so much controversy in Chile? The answer to these and many other questions lies in a fundamental concept that we are going to analyze here: sovereignty. In today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with news about territorial conflicts, global economic crises, and heated debates over international treaties, understanding sovereignty has become much more important than you might think. This concept directly affects our lives, from the price of the bread you buy every morning to our ability as a country to decide about our natural resources. When we talk about sovereignty in legal terms, what are we referring to? To the supreme power that a state has to exercise its authority in a specific territory. But this concept, which may seem simple at first glance, has deep implications in our everyday lives. What are those implications? To better understand sovereignty, we have to go back to 1648, when the peace known as the Peace of Westphalia laid the foundations of the modern international system. This historical concept marked the birth of fundamental principles that are still relevant today. What is it? Non-intervention in the internal affairs of other states, legal equality among countries, and respect for territorial borders. Sovereignty manifests itself in three fundamental dimensions that are closely related. First, we have territorial sovereignty, which allows us to control our geographical space. Then there's political sovereignty, which gives us the ability to make independent decisions as a nation. And finally, economic sovereignty, which allows us to manage our resources and define our economic policy. However, the world has changed dramatically since 1648. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to think that. Globalization has profoundly transformed the traditional concept of sovereignty. We have a very clear example, the so-called TPP-11, an international treaty, a trade agreement, that has sparked intense debates in Chile. Here arises a question: are we ceding part of our sovereignty by signing it, or are we exercising it by choosing to participate in international trade on our own terms? Here arises a question: are we ceding part of our sovereignty by signing it, or are we exercising it by deciding to participate in international trade on our own terms? The digital age has also brought new challenges. For example, how do we exercise our sovereignty in cyberspace? Large technology companies manage data belonging to millions of Chileans, and digital borders are much more diffuse than physical ones. The regulation of these companies and the protection of our data have become new frontiers of national sovereignty. Global crises like the COVID-19 pandemic showed us situations transcending borders. The virus ignored limits, making us rethink sovereignty. In a connected world, Chile's experiences help us understand these concepts. The maritime dispute with Peru resolved in The Hague shows modern sovereignty. Chile ceded maritime zone post-ruling, exercising sovereignty by recognizing international court jurisdiction. For example, the maritime dispute with Peru that was resolved in The Hague is a perfect example of how sovereignty works in the modern world. While Chile ceded part of its maritime zone after the ruling, it did so by exercising its sovereignty by recognizing the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. Another interesting case is the debate over the Escazú Agreement. This environmental agreement has sparked passionate discussions about national sovereignty. Its supporters argue that it strengthens our ability to protect the environment. while its opponents fear a loss of control over our natural resources. But sovereignty isn't just an abstract concept that politicians and academics discuss. It directly affects our daily lives. When we buy imported products, their prices are influenced by sovereign decisions on tariffs and trade agreements. Just look at how, for example, Argentinians fill our shopping centers buying electronics, technology, and clothes. Or like we saw at one point with hundreds of Chileans heading to Argentina for the weekend to buy basic food products. Their cycles. Suddenly, Argentinians invade Chile buying stuff. And the same goes the other way around. Chileans invade Argentina buying things. I just want to point out a everyday example. When we look for jobs, international job opportunities depend on agreements between countries. Even when we use digital services, we're interacting with a complex web of national and international regulations. As citizens, we have an important role in these debates. When we participate in discussions about international treaties, when we express our opinions on the protection of our natural resources, or when we decide to support or reject regional integration policies, we are exercising our part in popular sovereignty. Clearly. So, to wrap things up, sovereignty in the modern world is, let's call it, a delicate balance. As a country, we need to find the right balance. Between what? Between maintaining our national independence and participating in the international community. We need to protect our national interests while at the same time benefiting from global integration. So now comes the reflections, and I invite you to think about how you believe Chile should exercise sovereignty in this increasingly interconnected world. What balance between integration and autonomy would you prefer to see? Please leave your opinions in the comments. What balance between integration and autonomy would you prefer to see? Please leave your opinions in the comments. And if you found this analysis on sovereignty and its implications in our daily lives interesting, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos where we'll keep analyzing legal and geopolitical topics that affect Chile and the world. See you in the next video. Thank you very much. 1000.